Okay, so in this video, guys, I'm going to share with you an interview that I just did with someone that was at the Qubits 2025 conference. And essentially, his name is Majid. His name is the Quantum Bull on YouTube. And I want to give you guys some breakdowns and value about what you can look for from this recent event. So here's about a 20 minutes breakdown, and I hope you guys enjoy. Do make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. And that sale for StockMate to watch me trade live is ending soon. So make sure to go check out that second link in the description. Let's jump in.
It's mid-afternoon and Qubits has been super fun so far. What do you think? How are you feeling right now?
Yeah, I think that there's like a lot of different perspectives from a lot of companies on the quantum industry, and they give a unique perspective. And that's been really cool to hear. So today, what we heard so far is that they're very confident that their approach with quantum annealing is going to be the way compared to other quantum companies. And that's kind of a unique thing that kind of it gets you excited because you're like, oh, this company's doing something that most companies aren't.
Right.
And then there's also the questions you got to ask about that. What do you think about those things? Like, do you think that those are things we should talk about? Are those important? What do you think is like the one thing someone should know if they weren't at this conference looking firsthand?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I think it remains to me that D-Wave is differentiating themselves from other quantum companies. And you saw it at NVIDIA GTC where Jensen, the drama at GTC, and you saw Jensen try to call quantum computers an instrument, and then Alan pushed back on that. And you also you can go back and watch that coverage, and you did some good coverage on that. But you see like this desire to almost suppress. I don't want to say suppress. I don't know if that's the right word, but there's like some resistance. Yes, an us versus they resistance.
Well, that's part of every company that's like, how can we position ourselves with our investors or people that are interested in a company in a way that's going to increase the value of our perception, increase the amount of money that shareholders put in, increase our own company's like commitment and conviction in what we're doing. And there's a few things that go into that. Like, first thing is like that they have a story, and they've told their story. Like, they've been going at it for many years. They're in this, they're one of the only companies doing quantum or the only company doing quantum annealing. And then they also bring in the factor of, here's kind of the payout. Here's the companies that we're working with and the results they're getting and the increased efficiencies and things like that. So they're going to the payout side, but then they're also going into that us versus them of the story, where they're like, we're here. How many of you guys saw the talk on GTC where they said that we're 10, 15 years away? And what if I told you that we've been working on this for 20 years and we're actually already there? And so that's a piece that they're kind of, it makes you like, oh, I don't really like what Jensen said, and it kind of makes you like double down on the brand or something.
You mentioned that because I talked at lunch today with a D-Wave computer scientist, and she's retired, but she's actually back and in a consultation.
Is that by the like big D-Wave sign?
Right. And so she is. I asked her. I said, so 2025. It seems like a pretty big year for D-Wave because you have quantum supremacy, right? They're releasing science. The stock was halted on the NASDAQ, which was crazy to see that. And you've seen a huge move in the stock price and just investor attention in general. So my question for you is, has this changed your opinion at all in any meaningful way on D-Wave? Did you go into the conference looking for certain information, or has this meaningfully changed your opinion?
Yeah, I would say number one thing that we're asking, that a lot of people are asking, I think we were talking about the kind of same thing, is what's all the value they're providing to the world? Right. Because if they're providing a lot of value, then it's like the US when the stock market goes down because maybe the US isn't exporting as much to other countries because tariffs come along.
Right.
Why are they value? Because they're putting out value into the world, so the US receives more value back.
Right.
And so like with D-Wave, the number one question that I'm asking is like, how much value are they providing? And what we see is there's a lot of companies that came to basically outline how they're working with D-Wave. And it's like I said, it's like a 5% of 95% of companies. It's the people that have the biggest problems. So what do they say about value? Like, how do you provide value to the marketplace? Solve a problem.
Right.
They're
Exactly.
solving huge problems. Is it for every business? No. But is it for the companies that have really big, complex amount of data, like Boeing's with all the variables that they're saying? I think that's a huge customer that we have to watch closely. We know they partnered with MasterCard a couple years ago. Have you heard much about the MasterCard?
I haven't. I would have liked to see them here.
Yeah.
And just to hear about that partnership.
Because sometimes what happens is you get excited about these. Now the next step is, all right, let's see the results of what comes out of it.
Yes.
And that's the experimental phase of quantum, where you start to overlap into real results. And we're starting to see, I think we started to see some of that. We're starting to see some of that. What are your thoughts? Are you seeing like very, very, what do you think is the most concrete value add that they've had that you've seen them demonstrate?
Well, one of my favorite parts about being at a conference like this, and I've been in many professional conferences before, but I really like what D-Wave's doing here, is just talking to the people at the conference and kind of learning about their situation. Earlier, I had spoken to someone who was a bigger investor in D-Wave, and he's like, you know what? I feel better after this conference, this keynote. And I would say that similarly, I think that we're in a market right now that has a lot of uncertainty. I think uncertainty has been a theme for a lot of 2025 with the new presidency and lots of changes that are happening. So what we got today was just a very, very densely packed itinerary of lots of information. It's all there to unpack. Right. You and I could do we could do dozens of videos on just what they covered today, which is a testament to how dense and they just talked about their product roadmap this afternoon, and they have a lot of exciting things in the pipeline. What are you most excited about after today?
After today, honestly, I want to test out their cloud service personally.
Okay.
Like one thing that, I mean, we cover these stocks. You also, it's not just QBTS, right? We'll cover, maybe it's Rigetti stock, maybe it's IonQ, or it's could be an NVIDIA stock or another stock, right? So we cover the whole like landscape. I know you're more in the quantum right now, which is exciting. That's why I'm excited to meet you here too. Yeah. But one of the things that we're looking at with excitement about the market is the use cases that we can do. That's why I said 95% of businesses, to me, I don't know if they would use it, because they could probably it's not such a big problem they're solving with their data, at least, that it would make sense to not use GPUs and use the quantum. But when you start to get into huge amounts of data, then you start to see more cost savings. I'll give you an example. I was investing a heavy amount of money. Like my team and I were working on this tool that can analyze stocks, right? And it has thousands of assets. Every single asset has different time frames that it's being analyzed at. So the variables that affect one day in where the stock or asset could go is different than the variables that affect 1 week, 6 months, 1 year. And each one breaks down to different assets, and it's real time. So you're always having to get those. It's it changes. There's new news, there's new movements in the chart and new investors. And so when we're looking at all those things, I ran up a bill on AI models and on GPUs, pulling all that data, and I was working with a small library of assets. I wasn't even into the thousands of assets.
Yeah.
So and I don't know about you, but like if you have an ability to not spend thousands of dollars on AWS for a GPU or for your usage for your data, and you could run through the cloud with, say, D-Wave and run all of that data with with AI in tandem with AI, but use a lot of the computing power in your own language models or your own machine learning that you use with D-Wave, you're going to save a ton of money based on what we're seeing, based on how we're seeing. Now, I'd like to get clear on the actual amount of GPUs that are going into the classical computing that they're using as a benchmark against their quantum computer. Because then you would get a better idea of how much it would cost to use their service. So
it's interesting that you bring up cost, because your project, think now on the scale of a data center the size of multiple football fields, and now you're processing all the AI workloads of everyone using your AI model.
Think of it would run from one central API, but it would still process thousands of assets and millions of data points. Yeah.
So a theme we've heard today is power consumption in these AI models. And in this track this afternoon, when let's see if I have the name.
They measure in cost too. Right. So that's really cool, because they're saying, like, we're not measuring so much maybe in like how much money, but they're measuring how much energy consumption to run something. That gets you excited, because you're like, oh, maybe I won't use as much.
It goes back to what Alan Baratz had said at the end of the NVIDIA interview, and Jensen had gone around and he said, okay, tell me something that I should remember. You got 30 seconds. Right. And Alan said, how quantum is going to help you. And he pointed at Jensen Huang, how quantum is going to help you in a year, over the next year. So we were talking and we saw in the conference this afternoon, a lot of talk about low cost, low energy solutions. So when you're talking about even your specific case with your team, that the cost was non trivial. It was a non-trivial cost. So if there is a way in the future for these machines to make those type of calculations more efficient, then that's going to be huge.
It is. And it also still, like, I don't want to be pessimistic about it, but you also think they anticipate, I don't know if you've read it, but a lot of them are like, with the way software is going and how much more effective GPUs are going, it's going to be less computation from AI is going to become cheaper and cheaper, is basically what like the consensus is, like, to use AI. But that still doesn't, the problems that you solve are going to become more and more complex. As the future goes on, they'll maybe appear simple, but the types of problems that you solve are going to be bigger and bigger as we get more advanced. So I don't think that's a factor either. So I think they're uniquely positioned, man. I if there's one thing that I'd say is their number one thing, like, they could be okay. Like, let's forget all the innovations they're having. Let's forget that they're doing their machine learning and that they have the cloud service. Let's just forget that they have the team and they're building the tech. Their marketing is super good. Like I'm a marketer myself, and I see them doing copywriting that's I don't know who's their copywriter, but their marketing gets you excited. It feels dynamic, and they could not have any tech and people would be excited. So that's something you got to think about.
Has it just been me, or since the comments in January, have we seen an increased emphasis on that marketing? Because I think that every time I go to the website, something's a little bit better.
Well, they kind of play in that us versus them too. Like, I see, because almost anytime there's an event, like at least the past two, the GTC and then also the one at CES, right when those things happened, they actually changed their site. They went and it's not just them, also IONQ.
IONQ, definitely.
I remember seeing IONQ. Yeah, quantum is now. I'm like, okay. Well, they look at these events like, what are they going to do after this event?
Who knows? I do know that that this event really one of the things that I was looking at going into this event is, okay, you were on NVIDIA's home turf at GTC. The mic was in Jensen's hand. Now the mic is back in your hand. What do you have to say? And I, as an investor and just someone that's very interested in quantum computers and these companies, I'm satisfied. I'm happy with what I've heard today. And I see great potential in this company in the coming years. What about you?
Yeah, I think that when it comes to the number one thing that I would watch closely with the company, marketing's good. The news and innovations and how they get us excited is good. I'm 100% going to be watching balance sheet.
Right.
Balance,
Financials.
yep, balance sheet looks good like the past quarter or two. And I think they had some year-over-year revenue, like it's growing. So that's good. Number one thing is like if this sustains, if we start to see the revenue continue, then that's really good at like when we start to see them get into 50 million in a quarter, 100 million, or like, because then you're starting to look like more like a AMD type of really like get your foot in the market. A lot of big companies are using you and paying you, and they can't get enough of you. And the smaller startups want to use you, and they want to pay, and they're paying for the cloud or whatever. Then we start to see market breakthrough.
So that might be a good. What catalyst do you think would be if you had to predict in the year 2025? So they've already been off to a really hot start. They have this great conference that they put on. What catalysts, what partnerships, what key deals, what sales of compute, what do you think needs to happen for D-Wave to continue this momentum?
I think that they have enough of the us versus them right now, and they need to focus on the people and building good partnerships with people. I mean, love it or hate it, like if you're going up against a company like NVIDIA, you don't want to be on the bad side of NVIDIA.
Right.
And I think that's not a good move if you're trying to. It's a good move for marketing, but is it the best move? I think that's where people is like, if they're going to get some of that surplus quantum cash flow from the government per se, government plans to spend more money on quantum. Are they one of the companies that's right in play? Or, oh yeah, we're doing the 2-qubit gate, but maybe not the quantum annealing company that's like kind of like different than the others. Yeah. Even though they're different, I think to be still tightly knit in the conversation with the other companies as far as funding, as far as partnerships and learning from each other, especially if they're simulating the 2-qubit gates. If they're simulating the 2-qubit gates, they need to know how the other companies that are doing 2-qubit gates are doing it so they can become really good at it.
I'm going to answer that question too before we finish. So I think for D-Wave, what I'm looking for deals. I'm looking for deals with big players, like you just said. An AMD deal would be crazy, but any big company,
AMD deal.
Any big company really would a headliner company like MasterCard or anything like that would be amazing for them. I'd love to see them release another paper this year if they have an optimization paper or if they continue their research.
They do write good articles. And, you know, AMD is not out of question. We could see AMD happen because when they were talking about the 4 types right here, 4 types of quantum optimization, right? So quantum optimization, linear programming. No, here, where is it? You probably took a photo, maybe not. It's this one. Yeah. Lists, sets, and other combinatorial variables and tensor programming. So they have these 4 different approaches, right? Mixed integer linear programming it involves GPUs. And you know that, like, we use quantum computers with GPUs. They're still in tandem. It's not like solely a quantum computer. And so there's partnerships opportunities right there with AMD. Even if it's small, that type of news would be massive. Massive. So I think like that would be, you guys listen to what Majid's covering too. He's giving you guys really good routes to look for on if those are catalysts that if they happen, the value of the stock could massively increase as a result.
Thank you so much. And we are going to call it there. And we've got more conference still. It's 4:00 in the afternoon, and I think there's still more. This is a dense one, and then day 2 is tomorrow. So there's even more. So we'll keep sharing.
And we still got to fit in the time at the resort. You still got to have a good time.
You gotta have a Mai Tai or what?
Yeah, you got to go outside, play some golf,
touch
hit
grass.
some balls. Yeah.
I stopped playing video games to still not touch grass.
They don't have the conference here for no reason.
Right.
It's a nice place.
Exactly.
So enjoy the place.
Exactly.
And that's a last tip I'd say for them. Trying to go to a conference. The people you meet will be worth it alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys. Peace.